was basically to breathe. That was really, as an asthmatic, my impetus for looking into yoga more seriously.
Your experience with asthma is what drove you to practice?
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I feel like it's important to note that you had taken yoga previously and it did not really make any type of influence or have any type of influence on your experience of asthma, right? And so what was the turning point for you? So there was a turning point that you just mentioned, that you could breathe easier. And that was before you began to have a more personalized daily practice. What was the turning point with regards to you experiencing that, not just in yoga class, but in your daily life? I feel like this is, at this point in the history of humankind, at least in our modern history, if there was ever a time when being able to catch your breath and to work on this amazing respiratory system that we have been given, which is really what keeps us alive, it's now. And so I know that people in my circle, that's in my family circle, in my friend circle, in my student circle, who have respiratory conditions ranging from asthma to COPD, have a heightened fear right now, which is why I'm having a heightened interest in putting it out there that yoga can support you in your daily life to strengthen your respiratory system, your immune system, and your cardiovascular system and your circulatory system. But I want to really stay focused on the respiratory system. So was there a turning point when you began to feel that yoga was actually helping your breathing in everyday life? Oh, you're suddenly muted, Lisa. I can't hear you.
I don't know why that happened. But yeah, when I started practicing more regularly and attending classes in this tradition solely, I started to notice things were shifting. And some ways off the mat, let's say, that I noticed things were shifting is prior, I would not go anywhere without my inhaler. You know, I made sure it was in my bag. I didn't go anywhere without this kind of thing with me. Although I didn't have episodes constantly, but it had been bad enough that it made me fearful of it. Sure. So there were times where suddenly I realized I went out and I didn't bring it with me, you know, and at first I would kind of do this like, oh no. And then I said, I think I'm okay. You know, let me go with it, because I had learned by that point, which is hard to pinpoint an exact moment, but I had learned that I can pause, I can take control of my breath. At least I can try to, right? I mean, there's different reasons my asthma will act up, and it does on occasion. So it could be allergy related, right? And that's how it first began many, many years ago. So obviously by practicing yoga, I became more aware of what those things were, and I kind of limited my exposure or avoided them. But then, like in times like this, where there's much more of an emotional, distressing reaction, and every little gasp or cough, you wonder what it is, I know that I can step back and redirect my attention and see if I can breathe deeper. And so far, I have to say, during all of this, I have been able to do that, you know, which I think is quite big. You know, whether it's redirecting my attention to something completely different instead of focusing on the anxiety or the worry, or just saying, wait a minute, let me check in with my breath and see, can I take a nice deep inhale? Can I pause a little? Can I take a nice deep exhale and pause? And I've been able to do that consistently.
So if what I'm hearing is correct, not only are you able to remember that there is more capacity in your breathing, but it's also to remember that fear and anxiety can disturb and greatly shorten your breathing capacity or reduce your breathing capacity, and to explore your own relationship with yourself in the moments when it's happening, to say, am I afraid? Am I anxious? To actually be able to identify feelings.
Yes, I would say so. Yeah.
In your body and enact change. That yoga has helped you to develop, in other words, this awareness to check in with yourself and be like, how are you, Lisa, right now? Like, what is your state of mind? And also to give you the tools to redirect your attention from being kind of smothered by fear and anxiety, which we all are in our own ways at different times and different degrees right now, and to sort of counter that with faith that you can change your state of mind, and that is going to have a residual effect on your breathing.
Yes, I definitely think that being able to observe what's happening and then realizing I can change it using different tools that I've learned through yoga, whether breathing techniques or redirecting my attention or perhaps doing a little chanting. But those are things, and I carry this with me for a long time, that maybe perhaps a lot of people are turning to these things right now, which is good. But I do think that having some consistency and preparation and regularity, something that works for you when it gets really tough, is super important too. So I can turn to those things, and I've seen other changes too, because I was thinking way back to what you were mentioning earlier when Menaka, et cetera, came. And I think we were at the Bates house, and I forget the doctor's name that I was seeing.
Yep, Dr. NC.
NC, right. But recall, he wanted me to lay down, be prone, and as part of my practice. And it was like, no, it wasn't something I was comfortable with at body level, breathing in any way.
I remember that.
Yes, remember, I knew you would remember that. And then now my most recent practice has me doing exactly that. And it's a very, well, at some point, but it's a very different component. I don't have that. It's much more welcoming feeling when I do that, which I just think is really wonderful. Yeah.
And I feel like you're touching on, in the Krishnamacharya lineage, what is a vital focal point for us, which is that, and when I look at your practice, you can see this is very
Thick.
It's very thick, but it's also, this is, here's what we do. We have these little drawings, but when I look at your practice and what happens at the Krishnamacharya Yoga Mandiram, and even what I do here on a daily basis when I teach yoga therapy classes, is we have a long-term goal in mind for you. That's where we start. We don't start with the short-term goals. We start with a long-term goal. So having had that mentoring experience with my own teachers, so first having theoretically learned, what do we do with someone who's suffering from asthma or respiratory distress in their lives, some sort of, COPD or seasonal allergies. What do we do? Where are we taking them over time? And then where do we begin? And then the steps that we take to get them there with. And then also having been able to work with someone like yourself and many of my other students who have asthma, we kind of hold your hand through this process. And although theoretically, for someone with asthma, we may do so. Proning, this new idea of proning, and you've sent me a couple of wonderful articles, for example, is now revealing itself as one of the ways that we can, or doctors can treat, or even we can sort of help ourselves every day, add it to our life as a lifestyle medicine. But proning is becoming more popular as a way to increase the respiratory capacity in an acute situation, right? So now doing that every day, you can feel how it challenges your breathing structure, your breathing apparatus, and it's one of the ways to strengthen it. But we can't strengthen too soon. If we strengthen too soon, then you will have a panic or a fear reaction. And that's exactly what happened then. I remember, like, your whole system, as all of our systems do, shifted very rapidly into panic and fear, which is what we want to try to begin subduing and noticing and controlling, because that comes along with asthma attacks or respiratory distress. It is, they're intermingled, they're entangled. It's not just asthma, it's the panic and the fear that come along with not being able to breathe. Yeah. So we surely have to strengthen our capacity and our breathing muscles. However, done too soon, that's going to induce a panic effect. So, this idea of vinyasa krama, or working over time in order to strengthen the system in the ways that are necessary to both catch your experience and do something about it, is really vital.
Yeah, I was thinking about that, how you go from, one of the definitions that we've talked about in yoga from way back is, starting here and moving here, right? And how you get there in intelligent way, right? Like you've just explained with vinyasa krama. And another example, I think, that's really related to my personal experience with breathing also is, sometimes asthmatics have more trouble with the exhale, I think.
Yes.
But one thing I've noticed, I don't know, for a while, is when I'm tensing, I tend to hold after my inhale, just in everyday sort of situations. And all of a sudden I realize, wait, I haven't exhaled, right? Mm-hmm. And what I found interesting in thinking about my current practice also is there are holds after inhale now. However, just like the positioning, it's much more welcomed. In fact, it's very welcomed, because I'm not doing it in response to a distressing situation. I'm doing it when I'm ready to do it. And yeah, it's very different. It's a very different experience.
So I'm really glad you're experiencing that way and also mentioning it, because as we sort of segue into ending our conversation soon, I find it's very important to say that as yoga therapists, we are not treating a condition. So I don't want to put it out there that yoga therapy for asthma is, or any condition, and we're going to be addressing a number of underlying conditions in the upcoming times, that we are treating the condition itself. So we can have 10 people with asthma and they will be doing 10 different practices, 10 different durations, 10 different pranayama ratios for sure. Okay, so this is very important. So what is going to allow you to develop awareness and link to something that brings you into your center, into a calm feeling, is going to be very different than what brings somebody else to their center and calm feeling. And that is why it is important to work individually with the teacher who gets to know you. Now, that said, I do feel like practicing yoga is better than not practicing yoga. And if we enter yoga through having a condition, there are many ways that sort of in a general sense, we can work to do the work that's going to help us, let's say for asthma, to breathe better or to learn how to calm down. So doing something is going to be better than doing nothing. However, in the vinyasa krama of being able to implement that into your daily life, we don't want to end there. We want to begin there, right? So we want to begin with yoga, and not really generalized yoga, but yoga that recognizes there is a certain limitation right now at this moment in the system, but also that the practice of yoga was to help us to identify limitations and empower us to move beyond them, right? So the way I am addressing this now, and I think this is a I don't even want to use the word novel, but this is a new way of addressing this, is I'm going to start a course that's called Breathe Easier, and it is geared toward folks who are experiencing asthma or who have asthma. And it's just a 2-hour workshop where I will give you some information from a Western perspective, a little bit, because that's not really where we work from in yoga, but it's important to understand the sort of pathology that we're working with, and also from an Eastern perspective, and then give some helpful information on how the tools of yoga, different postures, different breathing practices, different lifestyle modifications, different mantras, different mudras can help you if you're doing them on a daily basis, right? In this 2-hour course, you will get the practice that we'll do, because we'll also have a practice, but how these can sort of fortify your system, your whole system, with and shine a light on what is making you fearful at this moment in time, while empowering you to do something about it. So I'm going to be starting with that as a entryway to yoga. Yeah. And then be able to individualize it over time so that people can, just as you're doing right now, just as I even had to do a few weeks ago when I was experiencing shortness of breath and the panic that came along with it, check in with yourself and say, well, is my anxiety and fear exacerbating this? And if it is, well, I have tools. I have tools now to do something about that. So let me utilize them.
Yeah. I think that's a big part of it, is realizing that you have something that you have been empowered with and can use as you need to.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me just take a look and see if anyone has asked any questions on our live so that we can address them. And please, by all means, write down some questions so that I can make sure we focus on them after our live is over. I will post the link to the Yoga for Asthma course in the comments. And again, if you have any questions, go ahead and ask them. If it's for Lisa, I will tag her and she can answer them. If it's for me, I'll be happy to do that. And why don't we finish with the chant?
Okay.
Chanting is actually a very effective tool for asthmatics. And while I was peeking in your, I want to say that you were like my experience with you was like a prototype for working with asthma, because I was there we were there straight with the source, and I saw very clearly how this person I know and these teachers sort of had an alchemy, and where is this going to go over time? And we are, I want to say, and proudly and gladly, way beyond their long-term goal as teacher and student, as just beings in relationship, and with regards to your own amazing process and development that I've seen over these years.
Thank you.
Okay. So we'll finish with a chant for everyone. Everyone listening, everyone who will listen, all of those in our collective families and circles, everyone in the world. It's a beautiful peace chant that we do to invoke the highest powers and all of the healing and life-giving, empowering forces that they can bless us with in our lives. And the way we'll do this, Lisa, if you're okay with that, is chant line by line.
Sure.
I'm pretty focused, but I don't have my book in front of me. I will do my best to stay with you.
Do you want to start, or are we alternating? Is that what you said?
Yeah, you begin.
I begin and then you'll go?
Mm-hmm.
Om Shanno Mitra Shambarunaha
Shanno Bhavat Varyama
Shana Indro Bruhaspatihi
Shanno Vishnurukramaha
Namo Brahmane
Namaste Vayo
Tvameva Pratyaksham Brahmasi
Tvameva Pratyaksham Brahma Vadishyami
Ritam Vadishyami
Satyam Vadishyami
Tanmamavatu
Tadvaktaramavatu
Avatu Mam
Avatu Vaktaram.
Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time and for being open to sharing your experience. I know that when it comes from those of you who have benefited, it really impacts people. I've seen this again and again. You know, I can easily sit here and say, oh, yoga is good for asthma and I can help you. However, when it's coming from someone who has gone through the process as an asthmatic, I feel like it's very potent and poignant, and I'm really excited to get it out there. So thank you for, I'm sure there are many other good deeds you're doing in your day, but I feel like this is such a valuable offering beyond your own offerings. And for those of you who are local, Lisa teaches yoga. Lisa has gone through my 500-hour training, and she teaches 2 amazing classes. One is on Monday nights at 5.
Yeah, but now that it's Zooming, it's 6:30.
Ah,
Yeah.
how are you staying awake?
Which?
I don't like to teach that late, but I do on occasion. Okay, so 6:30, and she also teaches a wonderful class on Thursdays. How would you describe it?
Thursdays 5:30 to 6:15. That's for teens with special needs.
Yes.
And that's really a great fun time with chanting too.
Great. So maybe we bookmark it there, and our next conversation can be about that, because I feel like you're becoming an acharya at that. It's a very successful class. So thank you so much.
Thank you, and I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for tuning in.